Hey everybody, just a few little words here to go along with your AMSL reading text about who's here prior to 1491. Obviously we think a lot about your American history and the European people that come over here and migrate here, but also forget about the Native Americans that were here before that, right? And so we're kind of just dip a little bit into that history, set a good context for how we start to see this trend of migration, settlement, and conflict between different groups throughout history. So, who was here first? Obviously, our Native Americans were here first, right? We have, the modern tribes we think about that are currently, can trace their lineage back to, previous groups back here, possibly 12,000 years ago. And so most likely from Asia, came here through a different way. Nomads, they were following megafauna and large animals. As they kind of moved around, they would follow those animals and find them, right, and follow food. So how they get here, a lot of different theories, right? So one is boats. Maybe they do boats across wherever. Maybe swim here. The most respected theory and most believed theory is something called a land bridge between Russia and Alaska. What is now Russia and Alaska up here during the Great Ice Age, right? All the ice kind of made a land bridge from that area. As animals crossed, people followed in, and they kind of followed this path all the way down here, following the animals from Alaska through what's now Canada, down to the rest of the Americas, and kind of branch off from there throughout history. So obviously, some of the famous early civilizations we'll talk about in South America and with the Aztec civilization in Mexico, the Mayas in West Mexico and Guatemala, Incas in South America. We'll talk about them a little later on. Um, as those descendants, travel that land bridge, populous related. Some of those famous things we have left today, these groups are called mounds. If you go up to Black Hawk Ridge, if you go to Iowa, and even up in Devil's Lake, you'll find mounds that were built by his people, right? So mounds were literally just big piles of earth, acres wide, no modern tools we're talking about, made to represent animals. Not sure why they were always built. Some are lines, some are animals, some are other shapes. There have been burial remains found in some of them. Wisconsin actually had the most mounds of any state in the country at one point. Unfortunately, we destroyed a lot of them as we built houses, highways, whatever. The current national mound monument is over in Iowa, just across the Iowa-Wisconsin border, but you can find a lot of really cool mounds yet here in Wisconsin, right here actually in our own backyard. In fact, there are mounds on the UW campus by Bascom Hall. So who are the early cultures that live here in our North America? Well, three, we have archaic, which we use farming, hunting, gathering. Woodland, starting to use more bone and stone tools, building shelters, even use a bow and arrow. And the Mississippian group then who use copper tools, larger settlements, cities, ceramics, mounds. That's where our mound builders came in. So here's some examples of archaic people. Mostly we have arrowheads and spear points, fish hooks, that kind of thing left over from those groups. We will trace it back. The woodlands started putting together some ideas of pottery, jewelry. We see some more refined tools. Some call an addle was basically a spear thrower that they would use too. We found examples of. And our Mississippian culture would make a lot more detail than art. More detailed ceramics, pottery, and even build cities. One of the biggest cities we know about is called Cahokia. It's down in southern Illinois. It had a giant mound in the middle. And so we think it looked kind of like this. There's a huge, almost like a Stonehenge kind of complex there made out of wood piles they found. They found the rotting wood in the ground. And we're kind of guessing a lot of stuff because, we weren't there, right? And so archaeologists kind of put together what they feel some of these cultures and stuff did. Some Native American groups will trace their history back to these groups, and we kind of see, who was here then in 1500 as European people started arriving. Obviously, we're going over a lot of stuff. You can teach entire courses on that. Heck, I've taken entire courses on those. So we're setting our context for what our course is going to cover. So we'll look at our regions, and we'll do a little project in class you guys are working on as well. So we know for sure that between 1 and 1.5 Native Americans, what is now the United States, all of the United States, multiple tribal groups, multiple languages. Many of those languages today are dead because they were basically killed off as Native American tribes were decimated, forced to change as we go through history. A lot of countries, if you go to Canada, they will always recognize the First Nations, what they call Native Americans up there. We see some of that here in the United States, but not as much always. We see our regions here. We go more detail, but we'll more focus on what's in the Northeast, Southeast, the Great Plains, Southwest, and kind of this Northwest, Western area out here in the West Coast. So looking at the Northwestern, kind of starting the Northwest up here, we'll kind of go west to east because, well, why not? Looking at Washington, Idaho, California, a lot of tribes there had permanent villages. A lot of times it was about salmon fishing. You would then smoke the salmon, dry the salmon for the off year. Basically, all revolved around salmon. The totem pole is a big part of this culture. It's the only time cults actually used that way, and they use those to help show family, tribal pride, all those kind of things with their history. They also had a huge trade network, so you can actually like look at metal and stone and figure out where it came from as we've gone through. So we found metal and stone that originated in Wisconsin in Native American sites, in Washington. So here's where they have these things called potlatches, where it's like these big ceremonies to show wealth and trade. They almost like a giant swap meet, if you will, as people trade stuff back and forth and traveled across the country, trading copper, trading stone, trading tools, all those kind of things. So our Great Plains going through the middle here. So think about Wisconsin, basically up west to the Rocky Mountains. Hunters and gatherers, because you really can't farm too much there. Okay, the buffalo is a big thing. This is a time before horses. So remember, horses do not come over until the Europeans come over. The horse is not a native animal to North America. And so a lot of times what happens is that you would have, this painting is incorrect as it shows horses, right? But they would, the Native American groups would light fires, do other ways to chase buffalo off a cliff. You find the buffalo that are hurt, you can kill the buffalo and take care of them that way. But their big thing is moving around from place to place, hunting game, and using that game to then help, survive. These only group actually lived in teepees, so a lot of times those Native American stereotypes of teepees, that kind of stuff. This is one group. So they eventually get horses from the Spanish, though, and that's where they come from, getting horses. But these are groups that would move around from place to place because their main way of living was using buffalo and using all parts of the buffalo. I mean, the bones, the hide, the tendon, the sinew, all that kind of stuff, to survive that way. Prior to horses, a lot of times, dogs were used to haul sleds and haul equipment and supplies from place to place. In our southwest here, so Texas, California, New Mexico, kind of that desert area, right, where it's hard to live. Some were hunter-gatherers like the Apache. Other groups, did bison, that kind of stuff. Other groups try to farm. The Hopi group was a big part of that, growing corn, squash, beans, called the Three Sisters. They're these kind of cool adobe mud huts and villages that they kind of built into the cliffs as a way to kind of live near rivers and building irrigation systems to farm their crops, right? And be able to farm maize, corn, if you will, that help make their civilization happen. So our woodlands then, going from Wisconsin east, essentially, north of, say, Pennsylvania-ish. Hunters and gatherers did a lot of their farm and did some farming as well, right? So they had stone and copper tools, some woodworking using birch bark canoes and dugout canoes. In fact, they found canoes in Lake Monona and Mendota that traced back Native American tribes. A lot of times, there are villages that were more like a longhouse or a wigwam type situation, kind of a house built out of sticks covered in bark. You see two big language groups here: the Iroquois language and Algonquin language. They often didn't get along very much. Some did, some didn't. But there's 5 Iroquois tribes basically around New York that the language all kind of goes together. And then you have the Algonquin, which were also a lot of advanced government and had kind of their own language system that way as well. Okay. Our last ones here are southeast groups, kind of what is now Florida, Mississippi areas. A lot of hunter-gatherers, farmers again, very advanced governments, almost like a modern-day court system. But remember that everything we have from a group varies from tribe to tribe, and some are patrilineal, some are matrilineal. Some ideas pass down beliefs on the father's side, some on the mother's side. In some cases, division of work changed: who farmed, who hunted, that kind of stuff. In some areas, it depended on slavery and all those kind of ideas as well. So just know that every group is different, every group is unique, even within a region. So we're going to kind of look at regional similarities a lot here, but also remember that there are tribes that were different each one as well. So just remember that as one of the big overarching ideas here, that every group is unique. You can't always, even within a tribe, different bands may be different. You cannot always kind of make an assumption based on one group. All right, guys, thanks for listening. I appreciate it. Make sure you guys are taking good notes, doing your reading, and I'll see you guys in class. Thank you very much.